Creating and maintaining UI library or an entire design system is complex. Building one from scratch can be a challenge, so let's prepare the project to make it easier. Hi, my name is Tomasz. I'm a former manager and tech lead, and today I want to show you how to prepare proper scaffolding for design system development environment. Before we start, here are some ground rules. This is part 0, like a starter of a larger series in which we will explore the whole topic of developing a design system from development environment that we are here through tokens, grouping to testing the components. Second, I picked React, but this architecture is viable for every other library. I am not using any particular free features that only React has. Third, I will be using Tailwind due to its great customization options paired with tons of ready-made code, but this is again entirely optional. Vanilla CSS or any other framework works perfectly fine. In the upcoming parts, I will be using Atomic Design methodology by Brad Frost. I find it the most scalable solution as of yet for mid to large systems. And last but not least, this is not a design tutorial. I won't go into details of how things should look together. I will dive into details of how things should work together code-wise. Alright, so let's jump to the code. Okay, so we are done. Let's see if everything works fine by running the dev command. Yep, seems everything is in order. Great. So let's start doing the actual development environment. First off is Storybook. So let's install it. It goes by npx this time. Storybook at latest init. Storybook is like a golden standard for UI development, and it supports many libraries out of the box, including React, Vue, Angular, Svelte, but also frameworks like Next.js and SvelteKit. Historically, Storybook was bundled with Webpack, but now it's cross-platform and it supports Webpack and Vite. And as you can see, it's working. So yeah, it works. It has all those tutorials, onboardings that we will not go through right now, but what's important is it's here. In here, if you go a bit higher, you will see that we only typed init and it found a React application and found that it's using Vite, so it set up the bundler to use Vite. We can stop this now. One thing is Storybook collects anonymous telemetry data. If you want to disable it, you can go to main. In here, go to core and disable telemetry to true. You don't have to do this, but if you don't want your data to be collected, this is the way, basically. Installing Storybook today is as seamless as can be. I still remember how problematic it was back in late 2010s when Webpack came with tons of configuration and you had to adjust every bit to make sure both Webpack configs and Storybook configs are alike, so everything runs the same. So the next step is to add Tailwind. So let's do this right now. So again, npm I -d, so this will be a development dependency, Tailwind CSS, post CSS, and auto prefixer. This again will take a while. Okay, maybe not that while. Okay, so now we want to initiate Tailwind, so npx this time, Tailwind CSS init -p. -p flag will create post CSS config that will utilize auto prefixer for us. Great. So the files are created here and here. And now we want to make sure that the Tailwind knows where to look for our classes. So main will be index.html, so this file, and source. Yeah, that's cool, but we don't need all this. Just these two, TS and TSX, and that's fine. So this project came with tons of stuff bundled, but I want to have a clean start. So let's create a new file called style CSS, and in here just use Tailwind base, components, utilities, perfect, and in our main TSX import this. And that's great. So we are basically home when it comes to development with Tailwind. Okay, let's verify if everything works. Run the dev command. Okay, so in here let's just go with 81 class name. I don't know, text for Excel and text red 600. Hello. Yep, it works flawlessly. Perfect. So let's start the dev command. Let's quit it. Okay. So one thing we need to do is to make sure that Storybook also understands Tailwind. So it's very easy. Just in here, add the import sorry as source style, and that's it. This will make sure that every file that is bound to Storybook will utilize the base Tailwind file, so this one. One of the most crucial thing in development is code style. I know it sounds funny and you might think I am overreacting, but fighting over spaces, quotes, line lengths, this can balloon into a real problem. A good way to solve the issue early is to drop linters and code formatting tools. Let's do it now. Right, so let's add our linters. Let's start by adding prettier. npm I again -d for development, prettier. Took fast enough. We now need to define prettier configuration file. So prettier config.js, .mjs, because we will want to have imports, and in here we just need to write type, not options but config, and export default. And I have my config that is basically with me for years, sorry. So it has semicolons on every line. It has double quotes, so single quote is false, and tab width is 2, and trailing comma is to all. What I suggest is also turning this on for your IDE. While Prettier can work perfectly as a client line tool, it's good to have this utilized on every save. So in IntelliJ, sorry, just go with like this and run on save with all the files, JSX, TSX, MJS, CJS, MJS, view, whatever. That's it, yeah. So if we now go with and change to a single quote, it will change to double quote on save. Perfect. But to start fresh, because we don't want to go through every file and type enter and then save to have the formatter. So we can just run prettier from the command line. -w means write, and it will be just like this. So few files got changed. I assume that they just got double quotes added. That's it for prettier. As for ESLint, it comes pre-installed with Vite template. What's important is that it uses its new flat config, and not every plugin for ESLint works with this. There is a flat compat class exposed by ESLint, but I found it wonky, let's call it that way. So this is use at your own discretion. As for the config itself, I will leave it as is, to both to save time and because I believe this config is pretty good. If it's all configured, let's go to work. There is a stories directory with all the files that Storybook created, and you can obviously leave it as is, but I will be removing it simply because I want to have, as I said earlier, a fresh start. So what's going to happen right now is we will create a new folder called UI, and in there we will have an index.ts export. So this will expose all the components from within our UI, so we are sure that it is tidy. And what I like to do is to have in TypeScript defined paths. So it will basically, it will expose UI to, source/UI source index.ts. So now every import from UI will be taken from here. What we need to do is to install another thing for Vite, because Vite won't understand this as of yet. So npm i-d vite ts config paths. And it's going fast today. Right, so in here we just need to import ts config paths from Vite ts config paths, exactly. And this is a plugin, and just to be safe, I suggest using this as a first item. Okay, so we have it here. Let's create our first component. So let's call this an info box. So info/info.tsx. And in here we need to import type HTML attributes from React, and we need to define an interface props that will extend HTML attributes of HTML div element. And what we want is to have a variant that will be info warning and error. Cool. So we write a function export default, because it will be exported by default, and this is good. And just to have a bit more action going on, let's create a classes array, which will be a string collection, and it will have a class name. Class name as a default, so we can pass our own class names. Class name or an empty string, of course. Plop, possibly undefined. Yes, that's why we are using. Right, so I want to have this rather straightforward, so let's have a switch on variant, and let's do case warning. Text yellow, let's say we want 800 and we want, sorry, border yellow 500. Case error, same, and now default, but also case info will have blue, and return, and we want div row, it should be what, alert. Yeah, this is fine, I guess. Maybe let's do rounded large because I like it like that. And that's our component. So we have a component, we have an interface that defines the props in the file, which won't be exported anywhere. And yeah, so now let's make sure this exports default as info from info. Perfect. So now if we go here and we will just go import, sorry, info, it will go in from UI, and we can just, you know, info variant error. This is an error message. Yeah, let's make sure if it works. Great. Without variant, it should be blue, and it is blue. Perfect. So we are home. All right, let's write a story. To create a story, first we need to create a file. So info.stories.tsx. And writing stories and the whole process is rather straightforward and mostly consists of configuration. So first we need to import types of meta and story object from Storybook. This will allow us to properly type the configuration, and we obviously need the component. It doesn't have to be from UI. Sorry, import info from info. Yeah, it will be more straightforward. I mean, we could import this from the @UI, but using this, it will be just on. It won't be doing its round trip from going from here to TS app, checking the references. It will just go straight. So what we want to do now is to create a meta config with type of info. So this will allow us to streamline the typings that we have, but it's just, yeah, that's basically what we need. UI/info and component is info. UI/info means the parent directory is UI and the component name is info. If we would go 1, 2, 3 in here, 3, the last part would be the component name, and this will be directories. So every level will be like, every level would get deeper. And what we want to define the story. So export, it has to be exported, and primary. Primary is kind of like a standard for naming your stories, but you can call it whatever you want. And as you can see, Copilot already suggests me to write a story as a component, which is totally fine, but right now the current standard says we should define this as an argument, so they will get passed to the storybook. So arguments and children, hello from storybook. Yeah, and export default meta. So we need to export this. We could write export default just this in here, like config, but this makes this a bit more cleaner and allows us for typing. Right, so we have the story. Let's see how it works. Primary, perfect. Hello from Storybook. This is not a Storybook tutorial, but I will just show you that there are variants in here that you can, modify. You can just click in here. You can see how this works with various different configurations. You can see how this works on a small mobile, on a large mobile. You can obviously have an inspector in here. You can have outlines for your components. So this is truly a great tool for development. This is all fine and well, but creating such components by hand will surely prove to be exhausting, right? Yes. Well, yes, you can trust me on that. It will become very old very quickly. That's why we can use a generator to create the components for us. And it's called Plop. So again, let's uninstall it. Again, with the -D for development, because we will not be using this on a public facing application, just in the development environment. And what we need to do is create a plop file. So plop file.mjs. And this is a simple function that just exposes basically the auto generator. So in order to have proper typings, let's just go with type. Hold on, import plop.node API. Node API and plop as an argument, right? So in here we will write the generators. As you can see, Copilot is already eager to get us started. So let's go. Plop set generator, and you can have as little or as many generators as you want. But for now, we will just use one for UI. And in here, you can have a description, perfect, create a UI, right. And generator basically consists of two main areas, prompts and actions. So prompts are the questions that the generator will ask you in order to extract variables from you. So type, we will what input, because we want to name the component. Name of the variable will be name, and the message will be component name. Perfect, that's very good. And this variable name will then be available across all the generator context. We will see what I mean in a second. Right now, this generator does nothing. It only asks questions. So let's utilize the answers. In order to do so, we need to create an action. And we will have several actions. So first is of type add, and it will create the main component. So it will go source/UI/Pascal case name. Exactly, Pascal case name. So as you can see, it takes the name variable, puts it in here, and applies handlebars transformation. So it goes from component file to component file. And we need to define template file. We can define template file, or we can define a template string, but for this we definitely want a file. And yeah, I am happy with this path. So now let's do the same. Actually, I can copy and paste this because we want stories. So dot story, And now, in my opinion, the hardest one, we need to create an appendix to the index. So we need to add the export, right? So path will be source UI index, exactly, and template, not pattern, will be like this, I guess, export, and in here, hold on, default as pass. Yeah, thank you, Copilot, you really did good now. So we will add this into the index file. Great, so now let's create the template. So plop template slash component.handlebars tsx.handlebars. What we can do here is we can be lazy, like I am lazy. So let's just copy and paste this, remove this because we won't be needing it. In here, Pascal case name. In here, we will just have props. We don't need all this. Return. Yeah. And note that it looks poorly formatted, and it's actually not really a problem, but you will see why in a minute. Don't really bother with how it looks in here, trust me. So the next one is stories.tsx.hbs, and again we can just copy paste, and this is Pascal case name because this is the only variable we will use in here. Yeah, and that's it. This is our story. So as I've mentioned, don't worry about formatting. Handlebars not always deliver the best formatting in the world. So, I mean, if you want, you can obviously format it properly. Nobody is stopping you to do so. But if you are lazy like me, you can utilize the script. So plop will be plop regularly, and what we want now is to have something that is called a postscript. So if you write post whatever, this will run after the X script has exited. So if we go post plop, it will run after plop is done, and it actually knows what I want. So I want prettier to go /UI, there's no point in going deeper. I want prettier to go and reformat all the generated files. Right, so let's test this out. Something with plop is not a function. Okay, so I messed something in here. Oh, right. Export default. Sorry for that. And it is here. So component name, some kind of component. And again, I messed something. Right, I named this wrong. But as you can see, it aborts. So we can just remove this and it will be fine. And let's run this for the third time. Exit 0, perfect. So what we can see here is that it created some kind of component.tsx, some kind of component.stories, and updated the UI, the index, sorry. Yep, it's in here. The component is in here, and it has an error in here. So basically it means that this is an empty interface because it only extends. So this should be just, this should be put in here instead. but I suggest leaving it as is because this is an error that will remind you to actually fill the interface. So you can write whatever variant again, and it will stop throwing the error. So this is it. Story also looks fine. So let's run Storybook and make sure that everything is properly generated. Some kind of component, primary, hello from Storybook, exactly. This is in here, right? So perfect. UI libraries are complex and the devil is in the details. Today we've managed to create a solid ground for development. Join me in the next videos from the series where we will dive into tests, visual regression and atomic design. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something and enjoyed the video. See you next time. Happy coding!